Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi. I am super excited to get a chance for us all to connect and to be able to, meet each other. Omari, we've never met before, and Mr. Wheatley, Mr. James Wheatley, you and I have certainly met. And so I want to start off, though, by saying thank you to Capital Stage and to Michael Stevenson for providing a forum for us to be able to have a discussion in light of all that's going on right now in the world and the loud and resounding recognition of racial injustices and obviously all of this in light of the situation that has just happened with George Floyd being killed by police. And it's brought up so many conversations and brought conversations into the spectrum of the arts as well. So it's going to be great to really to talk about some of these things and really just to launch off some of the discussion. I would love for both of you to introduce yourselves and just to talk about your background and your experiences, and certainly what we do want to get to is talking about the experience of being a Black theater professional or being a Black artist, right now in 2020, what are the things that we're all dealing with? What does it mean? How does it work? How does it not work? How could it work better? So let's go ahead and start with Mr. James Wheatley here. How about, let's talk about yourself a little bit.
Well, first thing I'll say is that I'm not a professional artist, okay? I am a person who, I started out singing in music, and I had my first professional job, a paid job, that when I was 11 years old, singing in movies and things. But my experience in working as a singer, as a child singer, and working among people who made their living doing this kind of work made me decide, keep my butt in school, don't worry about doing this other thing. I'm not brave enough to go out and do what these other folks are doing. I'm much older than folks think I am, so I've been around a long time. But at this time, there were limited opportunities and you struggle for those things. It did not appeal to me as a child, but I continued to study music. Music brought me to dance. Mm-hmm. And from dance, I came to Sacramento because of promotions of the job I had as an administrator for the state. And when I looked at the community here, because I commuted to Los Angeles for 7-8 years after I moved up here. I was in LA almost every weekend because I was either dancing or singing. Mm-hmm. But when I came and got more involved in the community, I was seeing there were very limited opportunities for Black people in this area. And so I started, I would do one-man recitals, and I was singing. I brought my dance teacher from LA to dance with me, and I'd do dramatic readings of poetry and things I've written. And then I would start finding other people who love to dance. And so I got a group together, we would dance. And then I said, if we're gonna dance, we need to take classes. We can't just, you got to work out. So I started holding classes for the dance company. They said, we have other people in the community who want to come in and take classes. Okay, bring them in. I said, oh, okay. I got a big room full of people who wanted to engage in the arts. And so I taught classes free in Oak Park for 10 years. Just come in and take class. And then one day I said, you know what? I think maybe I should incorporate. So I did. I incorporated the organization and said, okay, let's branch out into the theater. I didn't do theater. I thought actors were those other people over there. They're kind of crazy. Okay. But I knew about music and dance, so I taught dance, and I had other people to do the other work. I brought in Michael Gates from Sac State to do the theater things, and I had another person who was the husband of one of our board members to handle the music. And so that was how we started, just providing opportunities for people to come together and try to get some training and opportunities to show what they can bring to the world of art. So here we are 34 years later, we're still doing it. We're growing, but it's still, the job still is necessary. So in the meantime, I have dabbled in plays. I got to do a wonderful play over at the Capitol Stage. I've been at STC. You know, I've been at B Street, you know, but every now and then I get to go do something else. My joy is teaching. My joy is providing opportunities for people to get there and see what they have. Because they have, to see somebody going from having 2 or 3 or 4 left feet to having 3 left feet and 2 left feet and 1 left foot, and then they're coordinated, they're doing things, and they're working. You know, so that's what my joy is. Every now and then I have to go. I love to go and do an acting, but and I love the rehearsal, meeting people and the people who are in the industry, and I really enjoy them. I mean, their experiences are fabulous. You know, I've had some similar experiences because I've worked in shows in Vegas, in Reno, in Tahoe. I've been on national television, I've been on local television, but I always had my job that I go to. But anyway, that's enough about me.
Well, I do want to, before we get to Omari, I'm sorry, I have to jump in here and say that clearly there are multiple definitions of what it means to be a professional. So for you to begin by saying, I would like to start off by saying I'm not a professional, and then saying all of the things that you do and have done since you were 11 years old and all of the accomplishments, the opportunities that you've provided, and that you, you are a teaching professional, you are a dance professional, you are an acting professional, you are, so yes, let's not have any more of this, I'm not a professional business, because if you're not a professional, then I think I'll just exit this conversation right now. I have no business to be here at all. So wow, that's, there's so many things that you said that I would like to get into and unpack. And we will. But let's go on and let's hear from Omari Tau. Is that how you say your last name?
That's right.
Okay.
The model of humility that
right?
was rather astounding. But it's very interesting, though. I noticed something that you said early on, is sort of the idea that, I didn't see myself as a performer. I started off in music as well, and still am in the music world. My profession is I'm a professor of music. That's what I do at Cosumnes River College. But that world mingled with theater, obviously, and I didn't think that I had the stuff for performance, and I wanted to be a music educator. So we moved around a lot. I started here in Sacramento, but we moved to Long Beach and then to Dallas, where I discovered singing and theater, and really through the boys' club, Boys and Girls.
Wow.
They were doing a musical, and they needed someone. My dad was big on them here in Vallejo, but he was like, you got to get out of the house, got to do something. So I got involved with the musical as I moved to a new city, and I met all kinds of other young people who were doing that even more than I ever thought possible at that age. They were going to the performing arts high school, and I was just getting involved in choir. And so we made friends, and then they got me to audition. And so I went to the performing arts high school for my last couple of years in high school in Dallas. And it just sort of opened up a whole world to me about the possibility of performance. So much of the idea of unpacking what this conversation has been about thus far, about just our backgrounds, there's so much about the possibility of performance and in music that I had no clue. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know it was an option for me. And so I still wanted to be a music educator, did my undergrad at Michigan State in music education. Again, sort of gnawing idea that I didn't fit. I wasn't a performer. I saw all those performers and they had something I didn't have, but I still was performing and I still was doing things. And so I wasn't ready to teach. I went on for my master's in music performance, where I started to do more performance there, but it was in the classical arena. So I did opera and chamber music and classical study. And that was where I was really finding my sense of performance in that world. It was a different kind of rigor, a different kind of thing that a different art sensibility than I had been exposed to, really. And so I really loved that. But of course, to get more stage experience, I started doing more musicals, more plays, things like that. And people said I was good at it. I was okay. Well, all right. So I kept at it. And, but I always kept an eye on music education. So we did perform, I was performing with a children's opera company in Houston called Opera to Go, which was a touring ensemble for young audiences. It was a part of a larger opera company, Houston Grand Opera, one of the largest in the world. And they, they absorbed us. We performed, I directed, at some point I even wrote a piece for them. My world continued to grow in terms of what performance meant. There was a big open call for the Disney shows that were touring. And on a whim, a friend said, you should go. They're auditioning for that Lion King show. And I said, I don't know it. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. I mean, I haven't seen the cartoon, really. They saw something in me. The first day they had me come back and sing something. But they said, go listen to this part or see the show. And I was like, oh, okay, I can't afford a ticket. But I listened to the recording and I was immediately moved by the opening number. I came back, sang for them. Long story short, I got cast in the show and went a tour and did the tour for about 8.5 years. And, I didn't know that was, I didn't know that was a thing. I just learned a lot about myself, about my value in performance, in just by doing. There was never a plan to do any of the things that I do, even including my full-time position at the college now. That was not in the plan. None of this was in the plan. But I was always thinking, there's an opportunity. There is another opportunity to grow or to learn something new or try something different. And that's kind of what's continued to keep me going now. I have an opera company that we started 1.5 years ago now, I guess, Rogue Music Project here in Sacramento. That is a small company. We just do small things, small interesting things, things that move us, so that coupled with my job as the professor at Cosumnes River College keeps me in the world, in both worlds that I want to be in. I get to perform, I get to direct, I get to create, and I also get to inspire, hopefully, and teach college level students about the many possibilities there are from, branching out from music.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to say something. So when we were going to have this conversation, I didn't think that I had an agenda, and I certainly didn't know what either of you were going to say or share. But now that you have shared, I think you have slightly ruined my plan. Because I thought, no, I'm serious. It's because I thought, okay, well, we're going to be having this discussion about all of the limitations that come along with being, yeah, I see that look on your face, Omari, the limitations that come along with being a Black artist, particularly if we're going to focus on like the Sacramento area, the lack of opportunities and, the lack of diversity and lack. And now you two are coming in here talking, and what I really am struck by is that, well, you all are people who are out there creating opportunities, grasping at the opportunities that are there, and have really, followed the things that you wanted to do, and found those opportunities that would open up. So if and when, maybe we won't, if we get to a point where we are talking about instances where you felt like doors were closed to you, or maybe you'll be talking more about experiences of other people as opposed to yourselves. We'll see. There are a couple of things that you all said. Actually, I'm going to just riff off of something that, Omari, that you were talking about as far as not fitting in. I'm curious about for you what it was that made you, that you had this idea when you were starting out, like, you know, I don't think I fit in. I don't know if that was about, it doesn't sound to me like it was about ethnicity or skin color. It was about your level of confidence with your skill, or?
Well, I'd say it's probably mingled in with that. I certainly didn't have experience, you know. It all happened very, very fast. I started singing in a choir rehearsal or a musical theater rehearsal, and someone said, "Oh, I like the sound of your voice." And I said, "Oh, really?" You know, I think even my parents were like, "said You sing?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I do. I don't know." But the idea is that it's that representation idea, right? I don't see myself on the stage. I don't see myself in the background, the directors, the people who look like me anywhere in this, right? So there was a certain amount of, that's not over there, that's not me, that's not for me. And even when I did have some opportunities, it's so funny, I always think about this opportunity that came about when I was in high school. I was asked to sing in Little Mary Sunshine musical.
Okay.
And it is a very, very simple show.
Is simple a euphemism for something? What do you mean by simple?
Well, it's very plain, very, very simple narrative, very simple Cinderella-y kind of story. I can't even remember the show very much, but it's very white. I will say that in terms of the characters.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, is he dancing around saying that it's white, or?
Well, yes. I mean, well, I can't really remember the story very much, but that's what I remember. That's the impression that I got from it.
Okay.
You know, it's like Mounties or soldiers, and we're it's just, I was cast as one of the soldiers, you know, whatever. And I can't remember how I got asked to be a part of the thing, but I remember being asked to be a part of it. And the leads were not very good. I remember that. And I knew that they'd asked me because of my talent, supposedly. And I was like, well, I could do that part, but I wasn't asked for that part. And, you know, those are things that are in the back of your head for the longest time. But I remember distinctly at the end of the process, getting a letter from the guy, and he kind of, it's just the idea behind the letter was kind of, I'm sorry. It was like, thank you for doing this. I'm so sorry we couldn't cast you in the lead part.
Who was that letter from?
Say again? The letter was from the director. The letter was from the director of the show that we were in. And it was kind of this apologetic, we couldn't put you in the lead for X, Y, and Z reasons. You know, you're going to be kissing this blonde girl or whatever. And there was a clear feeling that you're the only black guy in this show. We can't have you doing it. This is Texas. It was the 80s. It's weird, you know, and all of that to say, that's just one of many instances where I took the opportunity to grow myself in being in a show, not knowing what all those other politics were, but still coming out of it understanding a little bit more about the politics of things. This is just high school. I'm just learning. This is all new to me. I'm learning a little bit more about, which is something we may talk about later, is about taking up space too. You know, I'm in the opera world, and there are plenty of black opera singers and all that kind of stuff nowadays, but it was really different for a long time to see anyone like me on the stage. So going to that, being in that world, taking up that space is important. I think it's even important now, you know, going for the parts and things that you don't necessarily expect or think that are right for you, but maybe you see yourself as a possibility and they didn't see, you know?
Okay. I would love to comment on that. Just to tell you all a little bit about my background and a couple of things that you've said that, you know, tie into it and relate to it. So for me, prior to being here in Sacramento, I think I moved up here 2012, after I had my second child and moved up here. When I was in Los Angeles, I was there for 13 years, and I was primarily doing community theater. I had gone there to pursue film and television opportunities, and I did the tiniest little smidgen of that while I was there, but really I was really held up, I think, by myself, in the sense of like my own fears and insecurities and just a lot of fear. The opportunities that were made available to me, I mean, that's a whole other conversation as far as that world of Hollywood and the stereotyping, which was, you know, fierce, and probably still is. But in terms of theater, I felt, you know, I found a groove and I found groups to work with, and they were such that, I mean, I think I was really protected in a way, so that when I came up here, it was that much more of a, and I was naive too, so it was more shocking to me or stunning to me and disturbing to me that in the years that I've been here, I've had the experience, you know, multiple times where somebody will contact me and say, or, you know, they're interested in having me audition or inviting me to an audition. And I'm like, oh, this is, you know, great. Like they see something in me and they want me to try out for this role or whatever. And I'll, you know, open up the script and immediately realize like, oh, no, it's because they need a Black character. They need a Black woman of my age for this character. I can't tell you how many times this happened before I got it into my head that, like, oh, it's not that they're seeing me and seeing me as like, okay, they need somebody, they think that I have the sensibility or the skill or, you know, to inhabit this role. It's that, you know, the first and second and third and final point is that, like, oh, well, let's start, well, we need you because you're Black, you know, and the character's supposed to be Black. And so, so anyway, I kind of skipped over a couple of things, but it wasn't until I started, that I came up here, that I started working professionally. In fact, it was Capital Stage that cast me in my first professional show, which was Clybourne Park, and that was in 2013. So yes, something that to this day I feel great. It's a great memory for me to have opened up that email saying that I was with the casting offer. I literally fell to the ground. I was like, oh my gosh, it was so exciting, so very exciting. And so I think for me, you know, my path with acting was one that, you know, I didn't study it in college. I studied it. I didn't major in it. Let me say it that way. So I majored in human biology, but I did about 3 shows a year. And back then I was into musical theater, actually. And so, and then after having got my degree, I went to a small school in London. It was called the London and International School of Acting. Very small school, certainly fewer than 20 students in the program. And it was a decent program. It was strong in some ways, and it was like the dance aspect of it, the vocal instruction was really great. You know, unfortunately, the acting was one of the weaker parts of the program, unfortunately. And so it was, for a long time, it was my, you know, dirty secret in Los Angeles that I felt very much underprepared to take on the world of auditioning, of just even doing the work of, you know, here I have a script, where do I begin? How do I break it down? So I got my real training in a lengthier period of time, in a more untraditional way. Like, I didn't have that 4-year degree. I studied for several years, about 7 years, with a wonderful teacher named Judith Weston, who did various acting classes, and also a noteworthy actor-director lab. And that's where I got really most of what I know about acting, aside from the experience that you gain by just doing it. But training-wise was with Judith Weston and all of the actors and directors that I worked with. But that was the source of my sense of like, you know, I don't fit in, because it was really more of a professional insecurity in terms of knowing what I'm doing. And so it took a long time. And then just, you know, getting cast and doing the work and doing the work and doing the work that brought up my sense of confidence of like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. And so I have had the opportunity to, I've worked at Sacramento Theater Company, and I've worked at Capitol Stage once and only once over at B Street. That is a story, but anyway, and then at a couple of theaters in the Bay Area as well. So, and I think for me, which is, again, I feel like it's a very different narrative, and I'm glad it's a different narrative than some of the things that you all have talked about, is that that my experience here in Sacramento has been one of feeling limited, not limiting myself, but limited based on the limitations that others have put on me. And I'm so interested in the ways that you all have had different experiences and maybe have not perceived. Mr. Wheatley, you touched on it briefly when you said you only made it was like one sentence in your whole story. You're like, well, I saw that there weren't a lot of opportunities. And so that it just sounds like you just, without even really overthinking it. So you started dancing, and then you started teaching dance and finding ways to create opportunities for other people. And then it was like, oh, I guess I should make this a company. And so if you could speak more to that, just what especially because, as you said, you've, despite the fact that you look wonderfully youthful, that you have had decades of experience being in Sacramento, and what have you seen? What have you observed? What changes have or haven't taken place in terms of opportunities for artists of color, and specifically for this conversation anyway, for Black actors? Like, what are your thoughts? What have you seen?
Well, I think the opportunities first come from your own personal determination to make it. You have to do the work. I tell people when they come in for audition, I said, this is not easy. We're gonna have to work. Okay. I tell them, one of my famous phrases is, because they come in, they say, well, all I got to do is memorize the lines. I don't care I know you're going to memorize the line. I want you to understand the lines.
Yes.
Getting people to read, to understand the things is I say, you can't deliver lines. You can't be the character if you don't understand what the character's there. I'll ask somebody, why are you on stage now? Oh, in the scene, I come on stage. No, there's a reason for you being there. Do you understand why you're there? Yeah. And how are you going to change things? But you have to be inquisitive. You have to want something to make a change. My mother and her mother were activists. I call them activists. They wouldn't see themselves. Because when I joined the Cub Scouts, my mother joined the Cub Scouts, and then my grandmother joined the Cub Scouts. They were den leaders. And then my sister joined the Brownies. They got in the Brownies, and so they would run Cub Scouts and Brownies, and then we went into Boy Scouts and stuff like this. I was singing as a Boy Scout. They had Boy Scout Sunday. I went, and so we went to this big Black church in LA, and I was to sing the solo. I sang the Lord's Prayer. Somebody in the audience heard me sing. They called this man named Jester Hairston, who was a music writer. He calls and said, I'm looking for boy sopranos, okay? Wow. So that's how I got started, okay? So I got my buddy next door, and because they asked me if I knew anybody, so I got this guy next door, he loves to sing. So we came over and he said, we got to be in the movie, singing in the movie. So I started things, said, okay. But then I was taking lessons from my cousin, but I decided I needed more lessons. I sang in, a church. We had a wonderful a cappella choir in our church. Well, we sang a cappella. We sang a cappella, we sang music. And we would go different places. We would travel around and do music. Our choir was so good. And I was in junior high school. But when you went to the high school, if they found out you were in the choir at the church, you were automatically in the choir at the school. Okay?
Nice.
My first semester, I'm going to sit in a math class, and a monitor comes in and says, "We got a program change for you." I said, "What?" "Oh, you're now in the choir." I'm taking math. Then I got into the magical singers. But then other opportunities came, so I was singing a lot. Then I was in college, and the guy asked me, I was in my last year of college, and I said, I got some extra time, so I must be in the school choir. And there was a guy playing the piano for the school choir. And he says, "Hey, there's a group on the outside here that they're looking for some singers. You want to be in?" I said, "Oh, okay, I'll go try that." It's turned out to be a group called the Young Saints. And we did television, and we did big rooms, and we were with stars, big stars, and we go in these places, and Reno, Tahoe, television, all kind of stuff. But then we decided they decided we should go dance. Oh, I always loved dance because I saw dancers on television, and I always admired them, but I never took a dance class. I said, I could go take a dance class. And so they said we have a series of dance classes, and so I would take the class. I was in an intermediate dance class. I don't know, I was lucky to get in that. But after the advanced class was after that, I would stay and look in the window, look in the door at the advanced dance and say, "I'm going to get in that class. I'm going to get in that class." And pretty soon the teacher said, "You can come in and take the bar. But when you get through the bar, get out." Uh-oh. Okay, she threw it on a gauntlet. So I said, okay, I'm going to work. And so pretty soon it says, "You can stay for the bar. And then you can now come in, we don't have you in the company." I said, "Well, they need somebody to hold the other girls, to lift the girls in there." I said, so I did it, I'll do that. But then singing. So one day I asked her, I said, "Why do your dancers always have to tell a story? How come they can't just be for the hell of dancing, have a good time?" She said, "If you're so smart, you choreograph a dance." I said, "Me? Oh, okay." I did. I got picked out a couple ladies and I choreographed the dance. She put it on the concert.
What? Wow.
The problem is that when the LA Times reviewer did the review, my dance was selected as the best one. Oh, and the teacher was not so happy. But we were, I just said it was different. It was different than the others, all right?
Yeah.
It was different. But then, you went out and if somebody says, "Do you do this?" And this happened in my regular job, because I came to Sacramento because I said, there are very few opportunities for Blacks. I've been sitting on the promotional list, but I'm not getting any request or interview and stuff like this. And so, and I was happening to talk to somebody who was from Sacramento. They went to Sacramento, back to headquarters, said, "This guy's out here saying there's no opportunities." So I get a telephone call then, "Oh, we got coming for an interview." So I got a job over in San Jose, and I was there for 3 months. And then somebody else from Sacramento came, and I was talking to them and said, "Yeah, I'm on this other," because I was on 2 promotional lists.
You were what?
I was on 2 promotional lists.
Okay.
And so this other one came through, and I said, "No, come on, I'm not getting this opportunity." So anyway, I got a call, and I came and I got another promotion and came to Sacramento. And that was a whole different world. Very, very segmented. If you were administrator, you even had lunch, you took breaks, you hobnobbed with these people. If you were an analyst, you did with these people. If you were a clerical person, you did. One day, the director and the chief deputy director and other folks came to break time. They just put out an announcement about a new position. Their affirmative action was just coming into play. Okay, mm-hmm. And I'm sitting at the table with these other guys that were in the same class, and I see the director over there. I said, and I'm getting up from the table, and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to talk to the director." He said, "You can't do that." "What do you mean I can't do that?" "No, you got to have your place." I said, "Oh, I'm going over there anyway." So I went over there, and I asked him. I said, "I saw this memo you guys put out, and I just had some questions about this program, how you're going to administer." And they said, "Well, sit down, let's talk." That afternoon, they offered me the job. Okay.
Well, wow.
About it. 24 hours. I said, "I'll let you know tomorrow." And I said, that was one sleepless night I had, because I said, "Oh, who am I going to be working for?" Because these are people, when I came up here, people wanted to touch my hair because, they hadn't seen Black people. Mm-hmm. They said, "Oh, can we cut your hair?" Oh, there was one lady who thought that we were Black only on what the parts of the body you could see. So that she thought that if you roll up your shirt, you were going to be white.
What time period was that?
I know.
No, seriously. That's a real question. When was this?
This is in the 70s, in the 70s and stuff like that. So, you know, you got that kind of stuff. And so, you know, obviously I was even told, because I was single, said, you should settle down and marry a nice black girl. I said, how come she got black? They said, because you'd be more comfortable. I said, oh, you mean you'll be more comfortable, okay? So, you know, that you would get all these clues about stuff, you know. But then, you know, I got, you know, there were promotion opportunities. And again, I said, I was doing a job. And they gave me, I was a manager, and they gave me jobs. They did more work, they gave work. And they gave me a job, and I was doing it. And then they forgot I could read. And I was reading about my responsibility, and it was established by a law. And I said, I'm doing this. And I kept reading. I said, wait a minute. When you do this work, you're supposed to get this much money.
Yes.
So I inquired about that. Okay. And they said, so they made some adjustments to make sure I was reported to somebody else rather than the person.
Oh, they made some adjustments, did they?
Right.
I still had to do the work. I said, well, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be getting this paid over here. So I'm on this promotion, which can you get me a promotion? I said, oh, well, yeah, we'll get you promotion, okay? They will put that, and I kept inquiring. I said, when's the promotion coming through? And, well, it's over there. They're still being processed. I went and did my own inquiries, found they had never submitted the promotion opportunity. So when I was able to find another job, you know, eventually I worked, and then one day I had to do the work. And always one of those things, when you do the work, they give you more and more work. When I left that job, I was one person doing it. They hired 3 managers to take my place. Okay?
Oh,
so I went off to another place, and I was doing that work. And they kept adding more responsibilities to it. And one day I get a call, and they said, we want you to come interview for this job. I said, what is job? It was for a governor's appointment. I said, oh, okay, I'll go interview for it. And everybody said, you're not gonna get the job. I said, wait a minute. I didn't apply for the job, okay? I mean, I didn't ask for the job and call about, hey, I want to be a governor's appointment. I said, I do this work. And they called me and said, will you come and interview for the job? Well, about 3 months after I interviewed for the job, I got a call on a Friday afternoon. They said, you've been appointed, be at work on Sunday. Oh, okay. I got a job as a governor's appointee, but I'm still doing my other stuff. When I had my interview for that job, what they asked me about was all my work with Celebration Arts, all the stuff I'm doing in the community. There was no question I could do the other work, but what were you doing in the community? So I did that for a long time. So anyway, it was opportunities, and then being able to take it, not being unafraid to take advantage of the opportunities.
That's what I'm hearing. So what I'm hearing is that what I'm seeing is a real parallel in your point of view with regards to your life in the arts, and also your life over with work, which is, you know, your focus is, I'm going to do the work, and then the opportunities, and then take the opportunities that present themselves, because I've been here doing the work. I know what I'm doing. There's a confidence that comes from being engaged, being well prepared, from knowing what you're doing. And so it didn't sound like, while others around you may have been questioning your abilities, you didn't question them because you're doing the work, right? Is that, Omari, is that what you're hearing too?
I think that's fair. Yeah. Really, like I said earlier, I didn't have a plan. I was going with the flow in many ways. But there's an analogy that a friend of mine uses too. Is sort of it's a personal philosophy. You sort of see yourself as an artist, as a human, as a whatever, as a student, ready to receive. You're in a space. You're in a room. A friend of mine uses an analogy that you're in a room and there are doors everywhere. All these many opportunities. You open that door, you go through it, and you're in another room with a lot of doors. And you get to decide which door you're going to go through. And you continue to create this adventure. I always sort of say to my students, when they're looking for opportunities or don't feel like they have a chance at being in whatever limited, I mean, there are a finite number of roles in any show, right? Mm-hmm. But if they don't find those opportunities, that they have to create the opportunity, right? You create the opportunity, and if it doesn't exist, build it, and try to build an audience that goes along with that. So there is a lot of, particularly in the arts, there's a lot of work, like as James has said, there's a lot of work that has to be done. Building yourself up, or figuring out, even if you're not trained, just getting the training by doing, all of those sorts of things that make all the difference, not just in terms of building a career, but just in terms of building your own sort of sense of self. It's funny, I'm a college professor, and there are ways in which you're supposed to jump through the hoops to get the degree and the da-da-da-da, and you're supposed to, but that doesn't mean anything. Really, it's about you building your own life, building your own future, building your own career. And the time that we're in, if I may, the world that we're in today really helps us better focus that. This notion that, COVID-19 slowing everything down, helping us to refocus and to replan and to sort of figure out what the priorities are in our art, et cetera. But also how the social unrest of the George Floyd death and everything like that helps perhaps many of us recenter and refocus the work that we actually do give ourselves to make sure that it means something, that it is valuable, that it speaks to our greatest desires and hopes, and not just another thing. Not just another thing that fills a space or fills a moment or fills a void, but instead something that really means something. That's certainly those are the questions that I'm having as I sort of continue to create my own opportunities and try to get my students and friends and colleagues to do the same. I hope.
Yeah, I think that, and as a music educator, that you must find yourself very much in a position to, because I love everything that you just said. I wish I could write it all down. I'm just so inspired by it, honestly, on a personal level. And as a music educator, you are in such a prime position to pass along that perspective to your students. Do you find that you are needing to, that your students are already having that idea, that perspective, or that you're really in a position where you're needing to change their minds? Like, you kind of touched on this, which is that a lot of your students of color. Are they people of color? And where are they coming? Where are you meeting them at in terms of their beliefs, their thoughts, their perspective, their experiences with whether or not opportunity? Do they feel like they're in a room that is full of doors that are just waiting for them? Because that is a perspective that I think, I don't know. I'm listening to it, and I get it, and I'm inspired by it, and I don't know that I'm not sure that I think that way.
Right, absolutely. No, I totally hear you. I hear that, and so two things. One, it is not always apparent, that idea of opportunity. You have to have a bit of a creative mind to find it. James talking about being a dancer and working for the government it's like, it was you, and you can't just, I don't know if that's a possibility for everyone, right? Not everyone is going to be that creative. Not everyone is going to be that go-getter, for a number of different reasons. And that goes a little bit back to seeing yourself in it, and having the right kind of guidance, having someone to say, yeah, I see something in you, or I think you can do it. Someone just giving you a chance, even if it's a bad bet on their part. They don't even know. Sometimes they just give you a chance, right? So for my students, it's really about a couple of different levels of things. I was director of opera at Sac State for 6 years, while I doubled over at Cosumnes River College and switched to just vocal music and choir and stuff like that. And I've always had a few Black students, a couple maybe, and then some other students of color. But of course, the world of opera is still primarily white. Most of the students at the school are white, et cetera. That's no surprise. Whether or not they saw themselves in that constant space of opportunity, I'm not sure that they would recognize that in a collegiate setting, not necessarily because of what I'm providing in my own course that I'm teaching or whatever, but just because of the way in which our music education system currently works. It is very, not just the music style being Eurocentric, but the expectations of just about any school system is kind of, we don't really care where you come from. These are the standards, and those standards are usually based on very privileged communities. And so if you come in and you're Black, or you're a person of color, and you haven't seen people like you in the art, you're not sure about how, even the language, sort of the cultures that a lot of these other students come from, a lot of them, not all of them, but come from these other places of, these other communities of privilege, you're up against a lot more. My interest is that they do see those opportunities, not necessarily in the field of study, but they see it again as this class, this major that you're doing is just another tool in your toolkit as you continue to define yourself. I can't guarantee that you're going to be an opera star. That's not what we're here for. But I can guarantee you that you will have and gain in perspective about the many possibilities of you in the art world. That's what my conversation is with my students, about their discovery, about their curiosity. You asked, do the students come with that? Do I have to give them that? I'll tell you right now, across the board, no matter who the students are, curiosity is wanting. Students don't have a great deal of curiosity.
Honestly, what is that? I have a theory that's about, I'm sure I'm going to offend a bunch of people. I'm going to say it anyway. It's young people. It's young people and this intersection of everything, from being able to just hop on Google and get answers to questions, and things, being thrown at you right and left in terms of like media and overstimulation and interacting with this instead of interacting. Well, of course, we're not interacting face to face right now, but you know what I'm saying? I just feel like I see it in my own children. I was sending lengthy texts today, just complaining about essentially that lack of a deep curiosity, or wanting to know, to learn, to engage intimately with something that you're excited about. And I don't see it. I don't see it a lot. I don't see it enough. And I think that kernel has to be a starting place for then saying, yes, I'm interested. I'm curious. I want to know more. I want to do more. I want to engage more. And then, as Mr. Wheatley was talking about, and then you start to pull people together. You start to collaborate. A couple of years ago now, I had started and it was because it was in direct response to things that I was seeing or not seeing, and wanting to have more control over my creativity. This actually started back when I was in Los Angeles, when there came a point where I thought to myself, I don't want to be 50 years old, still slugging around this town trying to book a Doritos commercial. I want to have more of a say in what I'm doing and not be hat in hand waiting for people to give me opportunities. And it took, that kernel didn't start to really get planted and grow and bloom really until I came up here. And so I'm really grateful, actually, that I was feeling like, okay, I'm kind of seeing how things are working around here, and I see a lot of companies or I went equity pretty quickly after I moved up here. And so that everybody knows that automatically is going to shrink your opportunities. It's going to shrink them even more if you're a person of color. And so not wanting to continue to have to wait for the next race play to be put on by a theater company in order for me to be like, oh great, now there's a role for me. I started thinking about like, well, what else would I like to do, and what would what I envision, what can I do to create it? So myself and my my once husband, who was the musical director, we began something called Now Hear This. And that was an intersection of actors and musicians and writers, in the sense of it was reading short stories that were set to live music. And one of the explicit, oh my gosh, it was so
I had a thing like that too.
It was hard work, and yeah, it was really cool. But and one of my explicit, I guess, missions with the whole thing was that I really wanted it to be a place to bring people together of different, to hear different voices that are not given enough of a stage, that we don't get to see as much and hear as much. And that was a lot of voices of color, also women, also, I took a lot of time pouring through stories and finding things that would be interesting and that would express points of view that we don't get to hear. But another thing with it that I was experimenting with, well, it wasn't an experiment, it was just something I felt really impassioned about, because there is a group in town that I think they're still going. It's, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say Stories on Stage. Like they've been going for a long time. They do really great stuff in terms of like doing, reading short stories and getting an audience of people to listen to these stories being read. It is a wonderful thing to have a story read to you. And I, as an actor, I was really interested. I really wanted to be called upon to read a story. And it became very clear to me because I put myself out there, I asked about it, I followed up, I was like, I would love to do this. And, but that there needed to be a certain like matching up that needed to happen. Like, it's the same thing that happens in theater. Apparently, like I couldn't even lend my voice to reading a story unless or until the author of that story or that the story was about, somebody that looked like me. And I was like, well, now this, okay, so this is getting, this is getting crazy now. I'm just like, so I can't even lend my voice to reading a story unless it is something that has to do with being Black. I don't.
Awesome. I have a side note, if I may interrupt for just a quick moment.
Yes.
Michael, plug your ears for a quick moment. I always often said that casting directors have terrible imaginations. Terrible imaginations. They want you to come in dressed like this. They want you looking like the part. They want you doing all the different stuff to be the part and to all of that stuff. And it's like, no.
No.
Part of the exchange is to have this, for me to show you many possibilities and you to say, yes, I have a wild imagination. We can go there. I did the Rent audition and they were like, yeah, I see your resume, like it was a bad thing. They wanted street, they wanted urban. And I'm going, I'm getting a master's in opera right now. So, but I can sing that thing because I have the background, I just do that. Yeah. But they were just so, yeah, we don't see it. We can't imagine it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and we need to talk about the story thing because I have a thing called Lions in the Library, which I did when we was in Lion King, and it was the same sort of concept. So let's talk.
Oh, we are going to talk. We will talk, and I can't wait to do so. Yes, we will talk for sure. For sure. Oh my gosh. So actually, Mr. Wheatley, I would love for you, just jumping over to something else completely, because Omari shared a story about a letter that he received at some point. And when you and I were recently participated in a forum that was hosted by Sacramento Theater Company, that was for their own, purposes of just wanting to hear a lot of voices talking about what was it called? It was an anti-racism forum.
Yes.
Is that what it was? And in the course of that, when you were sharing about an experience that you had, can you talk about that letter that you got?
Oh, I was doing a play, The Christmas Carol at SGC. It was one of my first ventures over there. And I had 4 or 5 roles. It wasn't, I was one of the supporting actors. And in one of the roles, I had a family, and my wife was white, and my children were white. But somebody in the audience did not like that. And they sent a letter, and the organization forwarded to me, and they were protesting the fact that they had a black man with his white wife and white children. I still have the letter. I just keep saying, okay, this keep perspective. But I mean, there is that issue in theater as to what roles that you get. And I think there are times that you can, unless in some scripts, they tell you what they want. This is a white character, this is a black character, whatever. So you try to adhere to that. But I've produced Steel Magnolias with all black cast.
Oh, Steel Magnolias. That was in that play a long time ago. Yeah.
There are plays that do that. But anyway, I had that experience. But I have the experience that you can't get a role unless you are of the right color and what have you. I said, I can play anything. I said, my first thing when I go into, I do get a role, wherever it is, what I'm looking at is that, who was the lead actors? I said, they got that role for a reason. They must be pretty good. Let me keep my eye on those folks. Let me see what they're doing, how they conduct themselves, how they come to rehearsal, how prepared are they when they come in there. I said, if I want to be in this thing, I've got to do the work like I've been seeing examples. And I said, I have to do the work. I've got to be ready. Because I've been someplace saying, well, can you do it this way or can you do it that way? I've even been in situations where I was hired to choreograph a musical, and a singer, they fired a singer, and they looked around, James, can you sing? Oh yeah, I'm in. Okay, you're hired. Okay, you can do the singing role. But I have to, and I'm always trying to press on the folks that I'm working with that you have to be ready. And part of that ready is your preparation when you are not doing it. I said, get rid of that phrase, I'm going to do. Do it now. Start working on it now, Say, I am doing this. If I said, I don't have time, yes, you do. I just start out. I tell you what, just start 5 minutes a day working on this, whether it's playing the piano or singing, dancing with it, 5 minutes a day. Next thing you know, you're going to be doing 10 minutes a day. You're going to be doing an hour a day, and you're still going to get everything else done. But you got to put in the time and effort to prepare yourself. So if the opportunity comes, you can step right into it. And you don't have to hem and haw, because I know a guy who he was talking about, he had an opportunity, a director walked right up in his face and asked him a question, and he hemmed and hawed. He didn't get the part. He could have had it. I tell folks, say yes, and then go home real fast and start working on it. Get ready, but you have to have the idea that you are capable, that you have the God-given ability to learn things, understand things, and keep trying. And when the opportunity shows up, then you can step in and say, with some confidence, knowing you still got to do more work, but you have the confidence yourself to accomplish that work. So you always have to be open and ready to do things, So, I've done lots of things I never thought I would do. I've written plays, I've written musicals, I write music all the time. I do, I write plays, and here at home, I'm building things. I'm learning carpentry and plumbing and all other stuff. I hire somebody and I watch what they're doing and say, okay, next time happens, I got this job, all right? Okay, I can do that. But we as humans are capable of a lot of different things. We have to believe in ourselves that we can do it. So you can't tell me I can't do it. I can learn it. I can do that. I had a girlfriend years ago, said, and I said, I was watching her crochet. She said, teach me how to do that. Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. I said, I saw her the next day. I was going to challenge it. I was really, really doing. But you see, if you're challenged, then you feel that you can step up to the challenge and do that. Like, I was singing. I was a long time singing. I stayed with and I told people I'd got my master's degree, and I told people I'm going to go to the University of Southern California and School of Music. They said, why? I said, I want to learn how to sing. They said, you already know how to sing. I said, no, I don't. I mean, I'm at this level. I've heard another level. I want to be at that other level. I want to be where those other folks are. So I went to school. I was working full time. I was in one of our singing groups. We rehearsed 7 days a week. I was in a dance company. We rehearsed several days a week. I had a family. I still went to school, and I still learn. I'm gonna learn that stuff. I'm gonna learn that stuff. So I did. I was studied voice, and it's a lot of fun. But the challenge was there, and I said, I'm going to accomplish it because I know that I can. I believe in myself that I can. That's why I try to instill in folks here that you can do it, but you have to put in the time. You've got to make the effort, and you will find that you can accomplish a lot of things in life that you thought were way beyond you. But if the door opens, you got to be ready to step through it, because that door can close real quick.
Well, I have to say, though, as somebody who is also, I'm a parent of two, and I'm hearing all that you're saying. My hat goes off to you, because it is a challenge. It is a real challenge. Again, I was having a field day on text messaging today, and, just frankly complaining and whining about a bunch of stuff. But I'm like, I want to sing. I want to play the piano. I want to write. Oops, didn't you just say, don't say I want to? Okay, so these are the things that I'm doing, I'm working on. Let's face it, I'd like to be. I just started teaching as well, actually, with the East Bay Performing Arts Center. So, teaching a Shakespeare class on Zoom with these kids. And but doing it all is a real challenge, and there are many things that in a day's time go undone. So I'm just saying, my hat goes off to you. It is to put in the work, to always be prepared, to always be open, to always be getting better, and to be in a place where you can take on opportunities that as they come, or to create opportunities. It does take work, and it does take time. And I would like to know the secret sauce. I would like to know what that secret sauce is.
Can I say, though, Atim, that it's really in putting together, this isn't a secret sauce recipe, but there is a truth to the different worlds that we grew up in, and what young people who are trying to enter into the theater and music and art now, what they're up against. And we talk about the devices and the thing, having the computer in their hand and all of that stuff, and that's true. The curiosity, I had an argument with someone who said it's really not that. The curiosity thing was always a problem when when the library showed up and there were a million books, people had access and they didn't really go, and and then it turned into a computer in your hand and they still didn't really access it. And I guess that's true to a certain extent, but there is this ever-present foreboding, almost, not foreboding, forbidding kind of, is that the same thing? the notion that overall there is constant barrage of information.
Yes.
You have access to the world, and they have access to you. No one ever taught a lot of our young people how to manage that. I remember learning how to use the internet. We learned how to use it in college. It was like new, do this, try that. I share some search engine issues, things, with students, and they go, really? I didn't know that. I said, you were born with a phone in your hand. So I think it's difficult. I try not to judge my students by purely on their curiosity levels and issues there, but reminded that they've got these tools that they got to be taught how to use. So finding where the next shows are, where are the auditions, where are the opportunities, how do I actually find this? That's part of the job that we have to do now. And that means all these companies have to be tapping into all of these young people, finding out what's the new story, what's the thing that they're talking about, what do they want to see on stage, do they want to see anything on stage at all, do they want to be in the theater, do they want to be in music, what kind of music, because they're finding information, they're finding things, and they're smart about it. I spent yesterday learning how to do Fortnite with my 7-year-old nephew, and his brain is, I don't know how he does that. I couldn't figure it out. But so it's not that it's not a lack of ability. It's finding our access points to young people, right? Finding the access point, finding the way in which that inspires them. Do a Fortnite play, I guess, or something. But which is not I mean, not too big of a joke, actually. There have been things like that. But just to say, I feel for them in certain ways. There is so much information that where are they going with that? It's not our paths that we thought would be obvious. It's not, well, let's learn more about Shakespeare. Aren't you interested in that? It's the biggest name of all time. They're not interested in that. We have to show them how and why and what the connections are in ways we never, as educators, in ways we never imagined we'd have to. I have to go back to school to teach school, in some ways.
Yeah, that's a great point. So many great points there. But yeah, finding the access points and even just being willing to start from scratch and ask the question. I mean, you posed a question in there that was like, okay, well, do you want to see this in theater? Are you interested in this? Like, do you want to go to the theater at all? And being willing to ask that question and see what the answer is. It might be no. It's a different time, and that is the challenge. I think and now with all that we're dealing with here with COVID-19 and being the scope of the arts having been changed, certainly for the present, and then we'll see what it looks like if and when things open back up. What is it going to take for people to leave their houses to come and be a part of this age-old practice of gathering in a dark space to listen to music, or to watch a show, or to engage in conversation that's being presented as a theatrical performance of some sort, or dance. So there's so many things to talk about. Conversation for the next installment.
I try to get people to move beyond the mimicry. It's very easy to see steps and move, and I can move like that and I can dance. There's more to it than that. And I've had people say, I don't want to work that hard. I said, wait a minute. That's, if you want to be good, you have to do, there's a lot of work that has to be done. And you want to be prepared for when opportunities open. And I would tell them often, I said, I will tell you when there are auditions around them. Okay, I'll tell you, Capital Stage is having their season audition, STC doing their season audition, but you're going to be auditioning with people who do this for a living or do it quite regularly. And you think that just because you show up and you got a bright smile on your face that you're going to make it. Said, no, you have to compete. You have to be ready. And I said, if Michael Stevenson calls me and says, do you have somebody like da-da-da-da-da? I said, you know what? I will only refer the persons that I know that are ready to do that. Otherwise, I'm telling you, go over there. Michael's having an audition, go over there. But if he says, do you have this person, then I got to look and say, who do I have that I know is going to go over there and do the work? Who's ready to do the work? And I want all of you to be in that position where if somebody calls me, I can say, yeah, I've got these people here. I got this lady, I've got this young man. Maybe they'll go over there and do the job for you. Okay. But this is what we have to move beyond being able to copy something. Mm-hmm. So even when I teach a dance class, I said, it's one of the hardest dance class in town. I said, yeah, it's hard. Who said dance was easy? I'm working with you to train the body so you can do all kinds of stuff. We get into very particular things about even how to do just a simple thing like doing a turn, how you start the turn by moving your shoulder or your elbow or your arm or just how you using your hands to turn the thing. You're telling a story. You're telling a story. Our obligation is to tell this story to these people out there listening. If you don't understand the story so that it's in your body or it's in those words you're saying, it's in the lyrics of the song you're singing, you don't understand that story. You can't capture those people and make them listen to you. I've asked some actors, said, why should anybody listen to you? Oh, because we're on stage. Said, oh, no, they don't. They turn you off so quickly. They'll be out there looking there, watching, wondering where intermission is, thinking about what they're going to do at the show, they're going to eat. No, when you capture the people and they will go with you, you're taking them on a journey. You have to understand. You've got to be in that. And the way you do it is with continual study, thinking. I've run into a lot of people that we haven't been taught to think, to critical thinking, understanding. I said, look, just because this line ends, there's a period, there's two spaces, and another line starts again, doesn't mean it's the same thought, the idea, the same feeling. No, there could be totally different things. Scripts are not written the way that you were taught in school. You have to search. You've got to understand why you're saying the sentence, what's happening with it. There's so many things you have to understand when you're thinking. Then you're going to get, I'm not going to do a line reading for you. You have to learn, you got to think about it. So when you understand it, then you're going to, the way that line is given out there for the people to hear it, it's going to be so, it's going to have, it will contain what it needs to contain for people to walk with you and your character. Because if you don't understand, they can't. They just turn you off. They'll turn you off.
Right.
So getting people to do the work is essential. I remember the first time I had somebody come in for an audition, and the person told me to graduate from college, and they were reading that they couldn't read. You couldn't read. I said, I'm thinking to myself, how do you graduate from college? You can't read. Or how do you graduate from college? You don't have reading comprehension. Is that you can't do that. That bothers me. That bothers me. We got to work. We got work to do. Yeah. Because you can't get on the stage, you can't go to this audition, you can't go to this saying, you can't do this if you don't understand it. I had people come to learn to sing and said, why you pick the song? I heard somebody else. I said, no, why did you pick the song? Because this is your story that you're singing. If you don't know the story, how are you going to sing it decently? How are you going to make people know that you are really experiencing what that song was about? You have to understand. And that's one of the things they're trying to teach. And I spend a lot of time counseling people, one-on-one with the folks, because you see something and you try to inspire them. And sometimes they say, can I stop and talk to you for a while? Come on in. Let's sit down, let's talk. Okay.
Well, I haven't worked with you with your company with Celebration Arts because I became equity before I had an opportunity to. But I've talked to a number of actors in this area who have specifically, who definitely credit you with being somebody who has taught them beyond just what it is to get on a stage and learn stage right and left and their lines and all that sort of stuff, but that you really have provided that mentorship, which, and Omari touched on that as well, about having guidance and mentorship as you're coming up as an artist. And I think that's really a very critical thing. I think, it isn't something that I had a lot of support, which isn't the same thing as mentorship. I had support in that my family came to everything. Like to this day, my parents have come to every show that I've ever done. Except when I was in drama school and did a couple shows in London. So they didn't travel across, the pond to come and see me, but everywhere else I've performed, they've come. My family has been very supportive. My friends have been supportive, but in terms of developing yourself as an artist and I really do feel as an artist of color as well, I do think that, having somebody there to speak to you very directly about, I love this imagery that Omari talked about being in a room and being able to see that it's full of doors, and all those doors are opportunities. I think that in and of itself is, this conversation is changing my perspective. I have to tell you, it is. I didn't.
Atim, I think there's a part of that I think especially since we're talking as African American performers and artists, etc. What James was just talking about in terms of preparation and reading skill and critical thinking and all those different things, we have to remember that being in that room with all of those doors and opportunities, for some, the doors feel locked, right? The doors are jammed, and someone on the other side of that door has got to come through and got to open up that door, like James does, who goes in and says, listen, I see you over here struggling. I'm going to help you through this door into this other place, right? And that has to do with the sort of, I think particularly in our community, or at least in the loose community that binds us together as, people of a certain tribe, as it were, we have to remember that going down into the schools, into the lower levels, the early education levels, putting our efforts there and making sure that our schools and our neighborhoods that are going to be feeding the next levels up and that are going to be feeding the childhood theater and drama programs and the music programs and the choir, that we're actually putting efforts in there as adults, as mentors. As we can't just think that we are performing or producing at a certain level without feeding back into the education process. Then we will end up with more and more and more students who are interested in that theater thing, but are not. Like me, I loved reading. I love the idea of reading, excuse me. I love the idea of reading. But I was actually a slow reader. I didn't realize it until I was in college and took a test on my reading skill. And they said, you're a slow reader, high comprehension, but you're a slow reader. I was terribly frustrated, terribly frustrated. I find reading it in person, I can make it dramatic, give it the James Earl Jones pauses and do all the things. But in terms of consuming a novel or consuming a script, that would drive me crazy. It was the longest, most boring, terrible thing ever. And I learned that it was a skill, like riding a bike. You gotta practice, you gotta get better at this thing. So much of that idea of working with young people and getting them inspired and interested in just even sitting with a script, I go back to that notion of having so much stimulus. Who wants to sit down with a book? You could just flip through your phone and constant. There's a you scroll through Facebook and you laugh, you say smiley face, you say heart face, you say angry face, you say sad face. You see it in a matter of seconds. You've gone through all of the theatrical masks. You don't need, why would you sit with a book that's so laborious and so, right? And until you learn that is in fact its own beautiful, wonderful journey and has its own value, it's really hard to get through and see. So I think for anyone listening or trying to, paying attention to this, it's not just the final product. You've got to think about what goes into it. We always think, well, the behind the scenes is the final, that's where you go back to. Really got to go back to the training. Where's the training that continues to feed in this? I have this constant shaking of fists at the classical music world because they don't often remember that they have to feed into their own audiences, feed into their own orchestras, their own musicians and singers, right? Without it, the audiences are getting older. They are, they're not going to be around forever. It's time to start feeding in, right? And that means those who give money to programs have to remember the youth programs, and those who mentor and lead and direct have to be thinking about those young people that come along, right? It's a lot. It's so much more. It's more work than we ever thought we were going to be doing, but but it's the love. It's the thing, right? You get into it and you realize, wow, this is so much more fulfilling because of it. As a result, it's not just a little frilly show that I did. In fact, I've actually invested in something deeper. Anyway.
I think that's a beautiful note to kind of bring this to a close. We covered so many things, and I appreciate both of you. And again, thank you so much, Michael, for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation. Again, I didn't think I was walking into it with an agenda. I still don't know that I was, but I didn't expect that we would go here. So, we talked a little bit. We touched on certainly about, what the, three of us as different, different artists and different, areas of expertise, if you will, that, cross over into other areas, and what the experience is like to be a Black theater professional, yes, Mr. Wheatley, or artist in this time. But where we've really come to is someplace that is, which I think is really great. It's where we've come to is a place that speaks to really a broader and very universal journey, that is one that is about creating opportunities. It is about training. It is about preparation. It's about feeding into our, taking what we have all learned and feeding into a younger generation so that we can continue to broaden and expand and show everybody, show actors of color, but also show those primarily white audiences what is possible, because it's all possible. It's all possible, So thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm really hoping to continue more of these conversations on a one-on-one level. And Michael, thank you so much to you as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike, for inviting us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. It was just fascinating. Thank you so much. Thank you, Atim, for hosting too.
Of course, my pleasure.